Hey y'all, thanks for tuning in to season 3, episode 1 of the Peace Podcast. Just give me transformation, whatever that looks like. And so we are in a new year, 2025, with a new season and a new focus word. And if you've been following me for a while, you know that I like to pick the focus word of the year, not because I think that a resolution needs to be made, but because I have seen over the years, this is my, I believe, 5th year of doing this, I've seen over the years that it pans out in such a way where we are able to focus on that word and able to focus on places of pain, and transformation happens. And so I like to take you guys on this journey with me because I know that, through other people's journeys and testimonies, we can also free ourselves. And so I'm super excited that we're in a new season. Not just on the pod, but just we can take ourselves into a new season of transformation in 2025. And we like to pick these pivotal moments like New Year to do these type of things, but it doesn't have to take a January 1 to make a change. It is really the act of deciding that something is a pain point, we need to change it, and then becoming solely focused on how we can make that change and that transformation. And it's kind of like when I always relate things to kids, but you know how when kids really, really want something, they'll find a way to work it into anything. And, specifically, my youngest does this. So he got some money for Christmas. And because he got some money for Christmas, he was very focused on being able to go spend that money on some things that he knew that he wanted that weren't gifts that he got. And so he wanted to go to Target. And so because he wanted to go to Target, he was very keenly focused on making that happen. And so when he would see me doing the things that I do after Christmas passes, which is to clean and get things back into working order, because I'm a get rid of things, organize things type of person to get that chaos out of the house. And so he sees me working, and there were things that he would say, like, hey, don't you want to take a break? We could go to Target. Or I would take a break, and then he would be like, aren't you bored? Don't you want to go to Target? You know what we should do? We should go to Target. And so he found a way to continue to reiterate that Target should be happening. And isn't that what we should be doing when we're trying to make a transformation? Literally finding a way to make that thing work into whatever it is that we're experiencing on a daily, weekly, monthly, yearly basis. Because that's the only way that true transformation can happen. That's the only way to get what you want. Just like we ended up going to Target yesterday, you end up with some semblance of change in that area, even if it's your mindset shifting on what the word actually means, which is what tends to happen to me. So, one of the things that I want you to really think about when you're focusing on choosing your transformation point for this year is that you can't try too hard. And so I see people oftentimes on the socials saying, what's your word of the year? Hey, does anybody have a good word of the year? Hey, can you share your words of the year with me? And I think that we forget that it is a completely isolated incident, meaning that your word has to be so relevant to you that you cannot forget that word throughout the year. Like it has to be something that has been a pain point for you that the word is the opposite of, so that it remains relevant because you notice yourself doing the thing that is your normal habit when it comes to that pain point, therefore resisting change where that word is concerned. And so if you're just randomly selecting words, ambiguous words, broad words, words that maybe are relevant to other people but won't be so relevant to you because they're not part of the journey that you're on right now, then what's going to happen is you're going to be unattached to the word. You're going to, just like New Year's resolution, let go of that gym membership in week 4. You're going to let go of that word in week 4 because it's not going to mean anything to you. So when you're landing on your word, something that you have to remember is that it's not just a resolution, it's a transformation. And if you're transforming, you have to land on a word that means something to you and isn't going to just be something that you resolve to do, but something that you require in your life to become who you want to become. And so if you know anything about me, one of the things, and I'm going to talk to you about how to do this a little bit later, but one of the things that I have is my faith journal. And I pull this out every beginning of the season episode to show you guys that it remains true and relevant and lasting in my journey toward landing on a word, and also in my journey on reviewing the year as it relates to that word. So I like to take you through the process of what I do, and I also like to take you through the process of my transformation so that you can see how impactful it is to do this. So this year's word was abundance. And when I go back to my journal entry from last year, which would have been in December of 2022, I like to look at, what was the reason for picking that word? And it's interesting too, because it seems that my journal entries get longer and longer the more I do this. And I think that that's not ironic to me, because the longer I do this, the more my eyes are open to what's happening and the more impact I see by doing it. So I like to read snippets of this just so you can get a glimpse into where my brain was when I chose the word, and then also what happened as a result of this word. So when I look back on the years past, I love to see like my journey through picking words, and then my journey through what happened as a result of, that process. So when I chose the word, it says, this year's word is abundance, because I know my limiting beliefs and ruminating in lack have kept me here. I'm holding on to what's for me is for me, while accepting the calling on my life for the capacity that God has shown me it will be. No longer am I willing to sit in a space that shows parts of me while staying small and accepting the breadcrumbs of my calling. I'm going to be all of me and trust my intuition and His direction to live a life of abundance. But first, I have to unload the thoughts of lack. I'm believing for financial freedom, speaking engagements, monetized YouTube channels, seeing me the way God sees me, the ability to rest, a fruitful relationship resulting in marriage, and investments that flourish as far as time, physical investments, financial investments, and spiritual investments. So that's how I ended my journal entry from last year, knowing that I was going to land on abundance, that abundance was going to be the word that I was going to focus on. So this year, when I start, I like to do a recap and recount of what happened as it pertained to that word. So I start with looking back at those things that I was believing for and just doing a recount of where God showed up as it relates to that word. So it starts, this year's word was abundance. And when I first look back on this year, abundance doesn't necessarily seem blaringly obvious. And that's a teaser because it wasn't blaringly obvious because my definition of the word was skewed. When I think of an abundant life, oftentimes my thoughts can get riddled with the societal definitions of the word: monetary riches, no desire unacquired, trips and expendable resources, and a life that is worthy of posting. Though that's not exactly what transpired in 2023, I learned 2 valuable lessons about abundance. One, emptying the spaces that are occupied negatively is the only way to allow abundance in. And 2, sometimes what feels like an external need is simply an internal desire for yourself to overflow. So I like to start the journal entry by saying, what is it that I really learned in a couple of buckets about abundance this year? And what are those main spaces where abundance showed up? And for me, it was understanding that in order to receive abundance, I had to get rid of some things first. And then also understanding that abundance doesn't always equate to monetary things, that oftentimes it means being able to accept and be grateful for the things that are there, but also showing up in those spaces abundantly as myself because I have the ability to do so. And so I go on to say, this year I started in a space where I believed in the power of God to do exceedingly abundantly more and his ability to perform miracles with one stroke of his majestic hand. But I didn't truly believe that he would do it for me. I desired for him to, but questioned why he would for such an imperfect person with a muddled past. That's when I realized that my negative thoughts were standing in the space that abundance needed to flourish. When I found my quote on the first day, I knew where I had to start. So I always find a quote that's attached to it, and I put that quote in my house, and it's near my dining room table, and that quote remains there, or I replace it with other quotes that have the same type of theme, which will be the word of the year. That quote says, "Abundance is the process of letting go. What's empty can be filled." And quite honestly, I was a bit annoyed at the thought of having to begin with letting go again. But there's been a pattern with this focus word. The word that lands on me has historically been a word that I have a negative experience with, and that negative experience has been because I put something in that space to fill it. So I have a void, I fill it with negative thoughts and emotions, and then at least it's full, not to be referred back to. And when I do that, that thing just festers and gets bigger. And when that happens, then I start to notice, this isn't the way that that's going to have to be. And so that something is usually some sort of pain. So I place the pain there so I don't have to go back and touch it. And so I allowed thoughts of lack to occupy those spaces because at least I wouldn't be disappointed if I expected the worst. Don't we do that? We say, okay, well, I'm going to expect the worst because then I won't be shocked or surprised if the worst happens. But by expecting the worst, I found it every time. So the more I focused on it, the more I found it. So the beginning of this year truly required me to expect more while simultaneously believing that I was worthy of it, which is hard for me because I give a fountain of grace to others while dumping more unmet expectations on myself. So I asked God to show me through his eyes. He did a lot of speaking directly to me. He spoke to me about the pains of my past, about the things I wished I had experienced, and about the things I was holding on to. He spoke to me about my perfectionism and how I had to let that go to ever fully embody what he had for me. He urged me to allow myself to have a human experience with emotion and frustration and a voice that didn't need to be silenced. And mostly, he showed me that what built me was my past, and it wasn't intended to be carried with me like baggage, but shifted into lessons that produced the character that could carry abundance. Because I needed to see that if I was carrying the weight of the past, there was no room for the gift of abundance. So, in that moment, I learned that it wasn't just about having more. And I think that's what we think when we're thinking about abundance. But my journey through this year has shown me that it was about unfilling those spaces that I had filled with pain and negativity and had carried that on my back like a little bag lady, getting rid of that so that abundance could come, but that so I would recognize it because I hadn't been able to recognize it before because I was so focused on what abundance might have looked like for other people that the pain of not having that was too heavy to carry. The load was too heavy. Not only did he speak to me, but he gave me people to heal parts of me that I didn't know were broken. And so I go on to, and I don't share all of this with you guys because I do feel like it's a personal thing, even though I share the personal parts with you. A lot of this journal entry is a very personal thing to me. And so I talk about how he healed those and how what I felt like I was missing from childhood, from decades of feeling like I wasn't enough, from years of experiencing the same feeling of lack, that he brought me people and things into my life that allowed me to see that abundance can come when you get rid of those things that you've been holding on to. So it's really this moment where he showed me that all of the things that I thought my past owed me, right? Like I felt like oh, I wish I would have had that, and I should have been able to have that. And if I would have had that, then I would have been someone else. He brought me those things in the form of people right in front of me. So where I felt like I had friends before that I had to perform for, now I had friends who didn't require performing because they loved me for me. Where I felt a sense of frustration and pain because my sister and I weren't those type of siblings who were super, super close and best friends. He brought me a sibling who would literally die on every hill that she knows would hurt me now as adults, right? Where I thought that, there were spaces where the parental figures in my life or even the adults in my life were not kind, and they made me feel more like I wasn't enough, and they continued this behavior of presenting me as the outcast. He sent me a man into my life who is gentle, kind, giving, and forces me to rest inside of being toxically productive, who forces me to receive because his love language is giving and I've never known how to receive gifts or help, and who forces me to allow myself to be loved in abundance. And then I was able to be given the gift of children who don't have to have the same relational issues that I had with mine, and who don't have to have those same feelings of void because I was hurt in those spaces, and I vow to make sure that they're not. And to give them a life where humanity is seen abundantly, where we're able to make mistakes and apologize for them, where we're able to have conversations and hold space abundantly for the other person's perspective, where we're able to actually be human, accept it, reflect on it, and appreciate each other for our humanness. You see, I needed abundance, but it wasn't the way that I thought. It was in allowing more of what I needed while letting go of what I, for years, held on to as lack. It was letting go of the pain and creating space for this new thing and the gifts it could give me. And it was finding gratitude in every piece of the way, because how lucky am I to have friends who are true, a sibling who is my best friend now, a person who heals my inner child, and the opportunity to parent my kids in a way that hopefully doesn't create those same wounds. And so while I was holding on to the fact that I lacked all of these things in the past, I was not being able to see the abundance of being able to have these gifts in the present, here and now. I learned that abundance comes from a space in me, not from external things. So when I allowed myself to be filled up, there is more of me to pour out in the world, and I started doing it. It wouldn't come from a glorious house or a car or trips or pose-worthy life. That wasn't abundance. It is being surrounded with the things that fill me up so that more of me can pour out unapologetically. I believed for financial. So now I'm going to tell you about the things that I believed for, because I like to reflect back on them, and not just in a way where I say, did I get it or did I not? But like, how did my mindset change in those spaces? And so I'm going to take you through this one more time just to kind of reiterate what we've done. So go back and reading the word and what I was hoping for, reflecting on the word as a whole and the lessons that it gave me, detailing specific periods and places where those lessons came, and then going into the space where I start to detail each and everything that I expected for and how it showed up or didn't. And I believed for financial freedom, and that hasn't come yet, but I see it on the horizon, and I see it in all of these spaces. I believed for speaking engagements. I had some of those, but I realized that the world is literally a stage. So I get to, maybe I'm not getting the monetary piece of that, but what I'm getting is the ability to influence people by using my testimony. I believed for a monetized YouTube channel. It's growing, but I'm trusting that the numbers aren't as big as the impact on the audience. And so if 10 people view that video, then that's 10 people who were affected in a positive way by that video. I believe to see me the way God sees me, and that's for sure happening piece by piece. Now, in order to see that, I had to unearth all of the lies that I was telling myself, so that's taking a very long time to do. But I believed for my vision to be as godly focused as God himself. And that's going to be hard to obtain, but I'm working on taking away the lies and replacing them with his truths. I believed for a fruitful relationship and the ability to rest. And not only did I get the fruitful relationship, but he is the reason that gives me the ability to rest, because he says, you go rest and I'm going to do this, because that's who he is. And I believe in investments that flourish. My time, my spirit, my mental health, and my professional life have all seen more of the authentic me. And that was the second lesson that I learned about abundance. If I let abundance in, then I come out more abundantly. And not just the mask that I've worn in the past, but the real, authentic, true me comes out in the spaces that I put myself in. And that is abundance. It's not always in our bank accounts. And I think that we've been told that lie by society for so long, that the only way that you can achieve abundance is to have the freedom of being financially set free from any debt and all those other bills and things that we have to pay. And while that may be a piece of it, abundance and living an abundant life is truly seeing what you have in front of you, releasing yourself from the past pains, and being able to see yourself overflow into the world around you. Because you can't do that if you're being weighted down by all the bags of the past. So then I talk about this year's word. And this is my favorite part because I love how words land on me. So in November, a word landed on me and I was like, this word liberation has to be the word. And then I looked it up and I didn't quite love the definition, right? And I wanted to pick this like sophisticated word. And so then I found illumination and I was like, oh, that's a cool word, because that word requires me to go out and shine his light through me, which I loved so much. But things that illuminate are not really changing and they kind of stay still. And so I didn't feel like radiate or illuminate really were it. So then I said, stop trying to find the word, girlfriend, and just let it fall on you. And that's when it usually has the most impact. And the word freedom just hit me. It actually came in, I was actually in a meeting for an organization that I'm a part of called Teacher Keepers. And someone was telling a story and she was describing a space. And when she described the space, she said the space was freeing. And I was like, that's the word. And it doesn't have to be this super sophisticated word, but it's so relevant to me because I've spent a lifetime fitting into the boxes that have been created for me instead of going out and just being the me that I know that he created me to be. Damn a box. Like, that's just how I feel. And so this year's word is freedom, because I have for so long worried more about the constraints outside of me than what was crafted in me. I am holding on to the ability to live a life that doesn't consider the boxes people put me in or what others might think about me. A life free from performance and full of an acceptance. Acceptance of what is and of who I am. I'm going to shed the filtering through their lens first and live a life free of all strings and completely forged by God in me. So what that means to me is filtering it through their lens means checking in with what people are going to think first, whether it be appearance, whether it be body image, whether it be what I'm going to say, how I'm going to say it, how I'm going to show up. I'm going to tell you, when I had imposter syndrome in my profession, for the first couple of years, I silenced so many things that now I say, and it's almost like it's the most insightful thing in the room. And I know that's not true, but it also makes me think about, when I say it's not true, I mean it's like not like somebody else hasn't already said something just as insightful. But what I mean when I bring it up is that for years I silenced it because I had imposter syndrome. I didn't think I belonged in the room. And now not only do I know that I belong in the room, but I know that I'm in the room because it requires something from me. And so speaking on the things, whether I'm wrong, right, or indifferent, but just saying what comes into my brain so that the room can hear that thing. It may be the catalyst for a bigger conversation. It may be somebody's light bulb moment. It may land completely flat and not be anything. But I refuse to sit in rooms and say nothing because of fear of what they might think first. And so now I'm shedding all of that. I'm going to be 100% who I was crafted to be in my videos with you guys, in my podcast with you guys, in my relationships, in my parenting, and whatever it is that I'm a part of, it's going to be 100% me, freely being me. And by that, I don't mean shedding whatever God has in His scripture and the guidelines that He gives me. But by letting go of what the expectations say I should be, I'm able to fully become who He crafted me to be. And so, what am I believing for in my year of freedom? I'm believing for full freedom from my past, no longer letting that shape or manipulate me into doing or being something. I'm believing for healing of my people-focused lens. I'm believing for dropping comparison and judgment for other people and also accepting it for me. I'm believing in fully consulting me and God only. So instead of asking everyone's advice, I'm going to really sit in what I believe He has me doing in this season is turning to Him and also relying on me. I'm believing in doing what I feel led to do. So instead of following what ChatGPT said is the best way to gain followers on Instagram, I'm not doing that anymore. I'm not thinking about what the best way to do it is because I know that in order for there to be a best way, someone had to do it first. And so I'm going to do what I believe is best for you guys and what's going to have the greatest impact on the people who are listening to the testimony. And whether that be a small group of people or a large group of people, because you're sharing it, I'm going to be completely real because that's who I am. I'm believing to flip body image issues on their head because that is something that's haunted me for life. And it really is about what people will think of me. And I'm ready to let go of that because I don't care if people think a certain way about me. I don't care if I walk into a room and they think that I don't belong with the man that I'm with, or that, I should do X, Y, and Z for my body. I'm going to eat a healthy diet and exercise for my body and let my body land where my body lands. And lastly, number 7, becoming how He sees me. Because I believed for seeing myself the way He sees me. And now this year, I'm really giving myself the ability to break free from the bondage of trying to get my mind to believe it and walking into a space where I talk, behave, become, and be exactly how He created me to be. And so that's what you do at the end. You pick your word, you talk about what you are really hoping for that word, and then I always pick 7 because 7's the number that usually resonates with me, but it's also a new beginning number. And so I pick 7 of the things that I'm believing for so that those will be my areas of focus. Abundance taught me a lot, but what it really taught me was, how do you get rid of the things that you're holding on to so that your hands are freed up to receive that abundance? And then once you do that, how can you walk into the space and be you abundantly? Because now you're full to the brim and you have so much to give the world around you. It didn't come in the shape of a monetary gift. It didn't come in the shape of abundance in bank account, although I believe it will, because I believe that obedience and stepping into His will for me is just creating that refinement process that will make that happen. So remember, it's not a resolution, it's a transformation. I'm going to walk you through the 4 steps to really land on that word and make it happen for you in 2025. The first is you have to pick a pain point. Make it mean something. If it doesn't mean something to you, then it's not going to stick. It's not going to be relevant, and you're going to let go of it in a couple of days. Number 2, make it your vision, right? it's only going to stick if you have a vision attached to it. If you can see yourself on the other side of that thing and there's a change and a transformation, it will then stick. There's a vision to this thing. There's a process to this thing. And I know what that looks like because I can see myself on the other side. What is it that I'm believing for myself? What vision do I have for myself? And how can I make a journey from now until the end of next year that requires that shift? The third is your realization. Make it visible, right? So your vision is to make it stick, but your realization means that you're making it visible. What does that mean? That means that you have to keep it at top of mind. If you tune into my short tomorrow, I'm going to tell you just how to do that, but it has to be in your face at all times. Otherwise, you're not going to remember it, and it's going to be just another goal that you created that you didn't stick to. If you keep it in front of your face, your realization and making it visible will be an everyday filter of, is this action, behavior, conversation, whatever it is, getting me closer to this word? And you'll start to adjust things based on that. And the fourth is your part. Make it actionable. You have to do something. It's not just a wish and a prayer, right? Prayer works and that's great, but you have to do something. So you think about, what do I need to shift, change, or move? What do I look like at the end of this process? And now what I'm going to do to make it happen. What does that action plan look like? And so I would encourage you today to take out that journal. If you don't have your faith journal, go get one. It could just be a sheet of paper. It could be notes in your phone. It doesn't matter where you put it. And if you didn't pick a word for last year, cool, doesn't matter. Recount what happened to you last year, the areas of growth that you feel like happened, the good things, the bad things, whatever it is. And then when you get to the end of that, I want you to really sit with yourself and think about your biggest pain point, your biggest area that you avoid, something that consumes a lot of your time, something that you in fact even idolize because it bothers you that much. And that word that lands on you, falls on you, needs to be contradictory to that pain point. So for me, I feel constrained, and I feel constrained quite often. Even to the point where physical constraints cause me a little bit of anxiety. So if I'm working out and there's things in my way, it's like it makes me a little anxious. So because I felt constrained, I knew that I had to look for a word that, one, meant the opposite of that, but two, focused on me impacting other people, because I believe that that's part of the reason that I'm here. And so freedom became that word, the freedom to go and say whatever I need to say to share my testimony so that other people may be healed. The freedom to walk into spaces and rooms. The freedom to share 100% authentically who I am with you guys. The freedom to be me in the spaces that I exist as a role for other people. And so once you choose that word or let that word fall on you, then you write down what it is about that word that made you choose it, the 7 things that you're expecting, or 21, whatever your number is, for this year. And then you really make that vision plain for yourself, thinking about what that'll look like. So the 7 expectations, or what is it going to look like on the other side? And then you make that visible. And I'm going to talk to you tomorrow in my short about how to make that happen. So make sure you tune into that. Thank you so, so much for tuning in. Thank you for being a great audience and great friends to interact with for the year 2024. I hope that 2025 brings you freedom from that bondage, brings you healing, and also at the same time gives you the courage to share this message with other people so that they may break free from the bondage that they're experiencing too. I love you guys. Thank you for tuning in. Don't forget to go to my socials and like my pages, follow me there, and also like and subscribe to this channel and share it with whomever you think that it will resonate with. Thank you guys so much. I appreciate you, and I'll see you next time.